Hello and welcome back to another Painting Classic Cars where we do not have an Austin Healey with us. Might look like one, but it isn't. This is a Sebring MX, which is a fiberglass kit car. Sebring, they started doing these in the mid 80s. Various different engine options are available with them. I think this one's a straight six, possibly a Japanese Toyota, I think, seems to recall. Yeah, quite an interesting beast. And it is, if you come across here, Lou, you'll be able to see better. This is a coloured gel coat. It's not painted. It is a coloured gel coat which has faded and bleached. And I'm probably standing in all the wrong shadows here. But yeah, you can see the finish is really not in a good shape anymore. So we are charged with breaking this down, breaking it down to a bare body shell, component parts, where we will go through the whole thing, prep the body, blocking on the existing material, and then we'll coat the whole thing in Nova Classic Car epoxy. We'll use the original epoxy for this, the yellow stuff, which has got a higher build and works a treat on fiberglass. So once it's all sealed off in the epoxy, we'll then go through our standard stages of leveling, shaping, priming, and returning it to this colour. So we'll get it in the workshop now. It has literally just arrived on site today. We'll get it in the workshop now and start the process of breaking it down, removing everything, prepping this body for paint.
So one of the many joys of working on a fiberglass kit car is that a lot of the stuff is bonded on. Sometimes due to the fiberglass breaking down and, you know, some of the holes are a little bit too big for the screws or the bolts or something like that, hence the bonding. But a lot of the time, when someone bonds something on, they don't hold back. So they end up shoving a load of it under, and it's our job to take it all off. So after gently heating, this as an example, gently heating it for a little while, sort of have to pull it off. Doesn't want to come off now. There you go, pulling it off, and it is just packed with sealer underneath. There is a fitting in the bit of chrome trim, but as you can see here, the hole is just too big, hence why this one's been bonded on. The windscreen as well was a massive pain. We've just got that one off, but it was, again, just absolutely packed full of bonding. So after a good morning's work of cutting it all out, wiggling it, and just brute force, basically, managed to get that one out. So yeah, moving on ahead with the strip down of the Sebring.
Okay, we're mostly stripped down now. A few oddities, being a kit car. These grill vanes aren't really grill vanes, they're little pre-formed bits of aluminium, I think they are. Just screwed in the back there with the world's tiniest screws, which all just spin. So, because it is actually quite nicely recessed behind the panel work, as you can see there, we'll leave those in place rather than risk damaging them. And we can get masking paper up behind here, just mask out the mouth in its entirety. It's the only way really to ensure no damage with that. Because we've also got a few problems with these chrome trims. I say chrome, again, they are aluminium and all the fixings are just spinning. So we're in conversation with the customer at the minute, how it's best to deal with those and how they want to move forward. Being based on an Austin Healey, it's likely that Austin Healey trims can be made to fit quite easily. So whilst we're waiting for feedback on that, we've got the trims masked out. Bo's busy now, blocking the whole body down. We've got a 120 grade going on here now, blocking all this out. Because as we mentioned earlier, this is not actually painted. This is a coloured gel coat. So there's no paint on this vehicle. It's the protective gel coat that goes onto a fiberglass construction is coloured this way by customer request, I assume. So if we look in here, for example, you can see here where we've burned through a little bit. We've got the fiberglass here, and straight on top of that is this super durable gel coat. And the gel coat on this is actually pretty good. There's not a great deal of damage to it. It's just bleached out, which is going to be the disadvantage of having a coloured gel coat, because once it bleaches out, there's not a lot you can do to bring that colour back again, short of repainting the whole vehicle, which obviously is what we're doing here. So with a 120 grade block, we're making sure that the body is as straight and as clean as possible. And we will no doubt come up with a few defects in the fiberglass, in the gel coat, sorry, but we can deal with that as they come up. Once it's all blocked down and any defects, cracking, splitting in the gel coat is addressed, we can then move forward and get this into the epoxy, Nova Classic Car epoxy, before priming and going back to this original colour, so we can get a scan of the gel coated colour and match that precisely, getting the car back into this colour for the owner. So yeah, just carrying on with what we spend day in, day out doing, blocking down and shaping, making sure all the panel work is in good shape, pun intended. So we'll leave Bo cracking on with this, and we'll come back with the body ready for epoxy. Right, as Bo's blocking through this now, you can see coming up here, we've got areas like this here. You can see that these are low areas. By using this pre-existing material, you can block out any low areas in the fiberglass, just to refine it further, which they wouldn't have done in producing of these. As we've gone over before, it's a huge amount of time and effort getting these right. But again, you see here's a good example. Where that's darker, that's a low area in the fiberglass mould. So we can use the pre-existing gel coat to level this out, because we're going to apply our epoxy over the top of this. The idea being to get the raw material as flat and as smooth as you can, so that we're not loading it up with a load of fiberglass leveling filler at a later date. We work with the material that's there. Okay, we're pushing forward and close now to getting the body into epoxy. It's in really good shape, really good shape. We have found down here a small piece of damage with a small hole just down in here in the fiberglass, which Lou's just very kindly put his finger through. So we just thought we'd run through the quick repair here on the fiberglass. It's quite a small hole, so with a die grinder we'll round that out into a bigger hole just to make sure we've got good stable fiberglass around there. So what Lou's doing now is coming in through the back of the panel, just keying up the reverse. There you go, you can see we've got good access down there. So it's just keying up the area there, ready to accept the fiberglass matting. So what we're going to do is we're going to mat from the inside of the panel, which will give the structural strength there all around, and then we'll level that out with a bit of noble elastic fibre at the end. We can't just put filler in there because it will just fall straight out. There's no strength or structure there. So the fiberglass matting goes in the back as it would with a factory panel. So once that's all keyed up, we'll head over to the bench and we'll get some fiberglass matting and resin lined up. You can see health and safety. Lou's got his mask on because this stuff's pretty unpleasant. So what we're using here is just the epoxy resin, which we measure out at 100 grams of resin to 3 grams of activator and hardener. So if we just get these measured out. Okay, now back over to the car. You can see we've just got some brown paper here protecting the side of the engine bay. Because what we need to do, or what Luke expertly needs to do now, is just brush on a bit of the epoxy resin onto the back of that panel there. Nice and messy, this stuff. It's quite a low viscosity, so it just runs everywhere. So just need to cover a sufficient area of that with the epoxy resin, which will start to activate and go hard. Well, it's starting to be going sticky now, so you can see just a good amount of resin around there. And with that done, what we now do is we've pre-cut here some fiberglass matting, which we're going to double this up, so it'll be folded in half. And then what we'll do is we'll just brush onto that some of the epoxy resin, just to get things started, and then get that applied over the hole in the back there. Now this will take probably 45-60 minutes to cure sufficiently, and that will go nice and hard, creating a good structure in the back there for us to then level out the outside with the fiberglass putty. It's always a bit awkward and fiddly in here, trying to get into the back of a space like this, but by coating both surfaces, they're already gone tacky. So we can get this laid into place like this, and it will hold position. It won't be firmly affixed, but it will hold position long enough to be able to come back out with a brush and brush more resin over the top of that, which will fully cure, fully harden, ready for the outer repair. Just running the resin out to the outer corners of the repair patch, so that will cure and bond to the pre-existing fiberglass. So I'm going to pull the camera out of Luke's way so he can get his head further down there, and I'll just come around to the outside so you can see what we're doing from the outside of the repair section. All this resin that's running through here is fine. That will all get cleaned off with the sanding process. So we now have the exact contour. There's good structural strength in there, so that once that's fully cured and hardened, we can just level out the difference between the outer and the gel coat and the repair section that's in behind there. Get that leveled out, filled smooth, and then we're pushing forward and into the epoxy stage. Okay, that's all done and cured, so that's in there now. That's a nice hard backing, but obviously we've got a thin, sort of the thickness of the exterior fiberglass and gel coat. Trying to get my words out. So Luke's now just going to mix up a bit of Novel Classic Car. Oh, I'm having a day of it today, aren't I? Elastic fibre. Elastic fibre. This is a super fine mix. Fiberglass putty like this used to be really thick, heavy strands of fiberglass. It's all come on a long way now, but Noble stuff, obviously, we love it. It's a real fine paste, not big, thick, heavy strands of fiberglass sticking out all over the place. Really strong product. Works great this on a steel body shell. Would use this in place of lead, which is something I think we've covered in previous videos. If not, we might look into doing that. But yeah, a really strong fiberglass product. This works wonders. Mixing it correctly, obviously, to make sure we're going to cure and set as it needs to. So this will just go in now as a leveling wipe. The structure's already there with the fiberglass matting in behind. This is purely a finishing leveling surface, basically, or even a surface leveler. So we just get a wipe in there like that. That will cure, change colour, and go sort of a creamy white colour. As soon as that's done, we can file that down, final shaping, and then that will see this ready to go into the booth for epoxy, which will be our next stage. So moving on with that now. Okay, we are 180 clean down. degreased, all the usual stuff. Quickly just walk around and show you, there's a repair that we did earlier. I've got right in the way of. So there's a repair all finished off. That was all fiberglass. So we've got the matting in the back as you saw, and the blue light levelling filler on there. As we've gone round the car, we've picked up a few little bits where there's some damage to the fiberglass. Damage to the gel coat. The fiberglass is in great shape, but you can see areas like here where it's worn through. So there's a few bits where the gel coat is starting to break through, which is fine because we've put it on the Noble for Classic Car epoxy, which we find is superior to the gel coat. It works really well as a unifying, almost like an eggshell. It just keeps everything together. It's a real nice hard product. It's a great foundation for any fiberglass work. So with the metal, we've got the anti-corrosion benefit. With fiberglass, we've got the gel coat substitute, I guess, for want of a better term. The way we work here with Trainee, primer is such an important stage of this. And I know different body shops work in different ways. Some people just like to chuck the primer on because we're going to flatten it and block it, so we'll just get it on there. We like to the primer stage, the nicer the primer is, the easier the work is moving forward. You're cutting out less material, you're getting a better finish, better product from the start. So we do like to focus on having our primer layers nice, which I'm sure you've heard us say before. But in terms of training, we use the primer stage for getting technique right. Because if you get your uniform technique right, you can go through colour, metallics, pearls, clear coats and so on and so forth with a good uniform technique at all levels. So on that basis, this is where we start our training. So Bo's going to, he's done plenty of primer work on individual panels. It's coming on really, really well. So now we're going to get this whole thing into epoxy, and I'll be in the booth supervising him on the first coat, and then he'll do the second coat all on his own. Builds up confidence, builds up technique, moving on to latter stages. So we'll get in the booth now, we'll get in the mixing room now, mix up the product, and we'll get Bo training up and get some epoxy laid down. One Sebring fully coated in a Noble for Classic Car epoxy. I suppose first time he's used the Noble for Classic Car epoxy. It's a little bit of a tricky product to lay down if you're not used to it. It's quite a thick, syrupy formula as it comes out. So it's a great thing to be practicing with. He's done a cracking job there. And yeah, moving forward, we'll get the levelling work done. And then I'd imagine he'll probably do the priming on the car as well, which is something he's done plenty of times and is quite used to. Okay, so it's all cured up now. This is the Noble for Classic Car epoxy you just saw us apply. So what we now do with this, anyway, is we go through and set the whole thing up, which is what Luke's doing now, which will identify any lows or textured areas within the epoxy. Now the epoxy we don't want to burn through or rub through because that is giving us our, as we said, kind of like our outer shell to the fiberglass. But what that does allow us to do, we need to key it up. So the whole thing will be rubbed down in a 320, which will just even the surface out, ready to do any levelling or filler work to any chips or damage. What this allows us to do at this stage, which is what Luke's going through with Bo now, is we can analyse, because of the way this product lies on the panel, we can analyse and really show Bo the effect of any shortcomings in his technique, should we say. As we said earlier, we are really keen to always have the primer surface as good as possible. That's the goal, because it minimises work later, minimises product usage. It's just the better way to go. So what we can see here with Bo's technique probably won't come out too well on the camera. It might come out once Luke's gone by and sooted it all up, but you can see the textured finish here, which this product does give. So we're not surprised to see a textured finish. As we go further into the panel here, we can see what is a very common mistake when people are learning. There is a dry strip right down the middle of the bonnet. Now when I say dry, there is plenty of product on there, but it's not blended in and overlapped very neatly because there is a dry fan coming off down through the middle there. Now at this stage, that's not really a problem, because as we say, a lot of people just chuck the primer on and we'll deal with it later with the flattening and the blocking. So we can deal with that now with the flattening and the blocking. It's not a problem at all. But it does make for a good sort of live lesson, so Bo can see exactly where the dry areas are and where he needs to work on just changing his position slightly to be able to get a better direct route and get a nice wet layer of paint going down through there. So that's why we use the primer stages really for training purposes. Because once that, as we've said before, once you've nailed that, you can go on and apply really nice top coats with confidence. So that's where we're at now, and we're probably going to wrap this video up now because it's marched on. It's quite a lengthy one. We try and minimise to sort of half-an-hour videos. There's a lot of work, so this does take a long time. Even on a simple job like this, there's a lot of hours that go into it. So we're going to finish this video up here with the body getting ready for shaping. We'll pick up with that in part 2 on the Sebring. Shaping, priming, colouring and putting back together. So thanks for watching. We appreciate the comments and the subscribing. And tune in next week to see which classic car we're painting then.